Hello and welcome to a new game from CCC9's Semifinals. This time Leela is playing Allie, her half-sister basically. You may have heard about Allie and ElzChess and you may not know what is the difference between them. Well, in order to understand that, you have to know that chess engines usually have two major components. One is the search algorithm, which is responsible for going deep into the position and gather moves and branches to be analyzed. And then the second major component is the evaluation component, which is responsible for evaluating a single position and assigning it a win-loss draw value or a win value expressed in centipoints. Now, Allie has a completely original search algorithm, but in order to be able to play, she needs a neural network for evaluation. And when she's using Leela's net, then she's called Allie. And when she's using the Stein network, also used by Leela, then she's called Allie is not allowed in the top computer chess championship. And the same goes for Leela, which is the other half of the story. Leela uses the original Stein network for evaluation, but he's also using Leela's search algorithm and other components for the rest, so he's also not allowed in TCEC. However, if you combine Allie's search algorithm with Leela's net, then you get a completely new original engine called ElzChess, which, by not sharing components anymore with Leela, is allowed to play in TCEC. And Allie, playing white in this game, started with e4, and after e5 she played queen h5. And you probably ask yourself, what the heck is with this move? What is this queen doing out here on move 2? And you'd be right, because this is the kind of move that you make at the beginning of your chess player journey. You know, when you are a beginner, and we've all been there, you feel the queen's power and you want to conquer the world with Her Highness alone. But after you failed a couple of times, you realize that you need more pieces in the attack and you start playing more reasonably. So you would imagine then that this kind of move is long forgotten, you know, at club level and above, but let me surprise you. Renowned GMs, Nakamura, Adiban, Savchenko, just to name a few, and probably many others, have played this move, and not in blitz, but in real tournaments. These guys play this probably to surprise their opponents or to just simply get out of theory. This knight will naturally develop to f6 and kick that queen away and force white to move the queen again instead of developing one of those other pieces. Now, in the other game, Leela managed to survive this with white, but in this one, Allie's queen was very busy, as we'll see. So what is this queen doing on h5 anyway? Well, it attacks this pawn on e5, so it needs to be defended. And you can defend this in a couple of ways, but in order to defend it properly, one needs to already have some knowledge about harmonious development of the pieces, because let's say you can defend it, but it also blocks this pawn to advance, and you need that pawn in order to fight for the center. So this is not a proper way of doing it. And also you can defend it, let's say, with d6, but this is also not good because it's blocking in this bishop. Maybe this bishop would like to go to c5 or b4, and now it's blocked in, probably is forced to be developed to g7. If the bishop wants to go to g7 anyway, then it's fine, but you are limiting your options with d6. The proper way of defending this pawn is with knight c6. This is also developing a piece, it defends this pawn, but it's not blocking neither the d pawn and neither the bishop, so this is the most flexible choice. And now after knight c6, Allie played bishop c4, attacking this pawn on f7 and threatening mate in 1 with the queen. Why not? This is why we played queen h5 in the first place, right? We want to mate quickly and then play another game, right? Well, Leela somehow saw a way to do it. Here Leela could defend f7 with the queen, but This again blocks in this bishop, giving it less options. If possible, you always want to go for the more flexible move, which is now g6, which not only defends but also kicks this queen away. And now this queen is trying her luck from f3, threatening again mate on f7. So Leela here played now knight f6, to which f3 being taken away, Allie replied with knight e2. And now, because the g7 and h6 squares are weakened because of this g6 move, Leela wants her bishop on g7 to guard these, so playing d6 in this position is okay because this bishop won't be coming out on this diagonal. So here Leela played d6. And this move not only defends this pawn on e5, but it also allows the light squared bishop to maybe come out to g4 with tempo by kicking that queen for a second time. So Allie played here h3 to stop that, and after bishop g7 she also played a3. And this is again a useful move. It stopped this knight from coming to b4 and threaten a fork on c2. And Allie maybe also wants to play here b4 and b5 and kick this knight from c6. And Leela continued now with bishop e6, which is a very good move. It challenges this bishop on c4, basically asking him what's the scoop, what is going to do. And Allie decided here to take the bishop on e6, but has 3 central pawns instead of 2, which is usually better. And sometimes white can get to this pawn on e6, but it's not really the case here. And after the rook will get to f8, it will be able to stare in the eyes of this queen, and she won't like that. And now, after d3, Leela continued with queen d7. She basically wants to long castle. Allie castled short, Leela castled long, and now Allie immediately attacks Leela's king with b4. Leela played rook f8, and this queen already feels the chills. Leela is threatening to move away with the knight with discovery, but right now it doesn't work because g4 and e4 are both guarded by the queen, so it's not working yet, but it's on the menu, as they say. The game continued with rook a2, and now after h5, Allie played b5, kicking this knight, and knight d4 is a valid option, but Leela preferred to play knight d7 and involve this knight somehow in the attack on the white king. Allie continued with a4, and now we have g5. Leela is giving up a pawn in order to get an open file and an attack on the white king. Now, of course, they both calculated a lot of variations involving capturing this pawn on g5, but human players make these moves instinctively because they know that it is worth investing a pawn in an attack in which the opponent usually loses much more. After knight h7, these rooks would be too strong on the open g and f files. So instead of taking on g5, Allie preferred 7, but of course Allie would love to take on a7, so Leela defended that pawn with the king. And now we have queen d2, and Allie bishop e3 and get an attack on black's position. But here Leela played now knight g6, and she has a very strong threat. She's threatening now to play g4 and then take on h3 and open the g file. And after g4, Allie would love to play h4 and then defend the pawn with g3, but it's not possible because after h4 this knight can take on h4. So at this point Allie considered that her position after g4 would be too dangerous, attacking this knight on g6, so Leela defended with queen f7, and bishop h6 is coming, so Allie moved the queen away to g3, but this allowed Leela now to kick this queen again with h4 and force it to move for the 7th time already in this game. So we have this rook on f8. So Leela now played bishop h6, not only to fight for these dark squares here, but to allow this queen to come to g7, step away from the f file, and allow this rook a new stare into the eyes of the white queen. We have now bishop d2. Allie doesn't want to take on h6, and allow this rook to come to h6 and from there maybe to g6 and maybe double rooks. If there will be a bishop exchange, Allie would love to develop this knight to d2. Leela played here queen g7, and now after king h1, of course Leela doesn't want to take here on d2 and develop this knight, but of course Allie won't take on h6 either if not forced. But Leela found now a nice way to actually force the bishop takes on h6 move with d5. She's now attacking e4 also with a pawn on d5, then after e takes on d5, knight e4 is still coming, so that exchange doesn't help. And after knight e4 on d2. So at this point Allie felt the need to take on h6, and now after rook h6 she finally took on d5, and after e takes on d5 Allie played rook a3. And my guess is that rook a3's idea is that now after knight e4 Allie wants to give up her queen for this knight and this rook. And this is not an unheard of exchange because a queen is roughly equal to a rook, a knight and a pawn, so this could be a good defensive move. So here after pawn takes and rook takes on f3, Allie probably was preparing rook takes on f3. But after rook a3, Leela didn't play knight e4, no, she found a much stronger move. She played away, but not to e4, as we'll see. And if this knight moves away, someone needs to defend d5, and this is now what this knight from e7 is doing. And this move also allows this rook to come to g6 and attack on g2. So this knight e7 move is a multi-purpose move, which is the best sort. And now Allie played here queen e3, and she's attacking this pawn on e5. And Leela has a couple of ways to defend it. She could play here rook h5 or knight h5 and allow this queen to defend this pawn. But none of these moves are really the best move in the position. For example, after knight h5, Allie could bring this knight on b1 into the defense via d2. And here after, let's say, rook g6, she can just completely ignore the threat on g2 and play knight f3. And even though she would lose this pawn, these two knights are a very, very strong defensive resource here for Allie, and she actually wouldn't stand that badly in this position. But after queen e3, Leela found a very, very strong move. She played here knight e8, and this move also allows the queen to defend on e5. But why would be a move with a knight back to the first rank be so strong? Well, 3 and defending the white king, because now after knight d2, Leela could play here d4 and force the king to e4, and now she could play knight d6 and attack this queen again, something that wouldn't be possible from h5 without losing this pawn on e5. And now after queen g4, Leela has rook g6, and here the queen either can take on h4 or come to d2, but none of these moves defend the f3 square. And actually the best here, signaled by the engine, is queen d7. And now after would just chop it off, the queen is not around on e4 to defend the knight as it was in the knight h5 line. So after knight e8, instead of knight d2, Allie actually played here c3. Leela now continued with knight f5, attacking this queen and forcing it to move for the nth time now. And after queen c1, she attacked this pawn on g2, rook g1, and now knight back to f6, and after rook a2, Leela is in position for some fireworks. She has a very good control of the g-file, and her plan is quite simply to get rid of these pawns on the h-file, and then rook h8 would be a simple and easy mate. So in order to illustrate what's her idea, if let's say Allie plays something bad, let's say rook a3, well, she wants to take here on f2, force the king to h2, and now move this rook away from the g-file, let's say rook f6, and now after another bad move by Allie, she would continue with queen g3 check, and after this knight takes, h takes on g3 would be a very cute mate. But of course Allie is also moving, and here after knight g4, f2 is very difficult. For example, after queen e1, knight f2 is still possible because of after queen takes there's knight g3 check, and this queen would be lost. And defending the f2 pawn with the rook is also not very good, because then there are problems on the g5. So Allie preferred to take on g4, and now the game continued with knight g3, trying to get rid of the h4 pawn. And now, of course, the basic idea here is that after f takes on g3 and h takes on g3, the h file cleared, and this would be a nice mate. But unfortunately this move doesn't work, it only draws. But rook h6 does work, and the point is that after knight h5 blocks the file, there's queen g4, and again there's a mate threat. And the best move here is actually queen e3, and after rook h5, queen h3, sorry. And in this position, best for black is actually to play rook f3. And here, of course, the queen is pinned, it cannot take here. And if it takes here, then it gets mated like this. And h2 and rook and queen takes on h2 mate. And there are a lot of other variations, but you get the idea. If the knight is taken after knight g3, white gets mated. So Allie preferred to get out of the check with king h2. And Allie defends, but after queen f6 and knight c1, Leela decides to cash in, and she plays here knight f1 check, forcing the rook to take. And here after rook takes on f1, she won an exchange, but the attack is not over. And if, let's say, Allie tries to save both knights now with knight a3, then e4 could come after knight e2, queen d6 check, g3, h takes, queen takes, rook f2 check, king h1, and queen g3 check, and knight has to take. Leela can take this rook on a2, and she has two rooks for two knights, but actually this knight on a3 will be lost, because if it goes back to b1, then it gets pinned and will be lost. So instead of going for this after rook takes on f1, Allie just gave up on this knight on c1, and she played knight d2 and is trying to use this knight in the defense. But now after rook takes on c1, knight f3 and queen f4 check, Leela is going into an endgame that is completely winning. Here after queen takes and e takes on f4, Leela will clear the queen side from these pawns and will push her a and b pawn, and it will be an easy win. The game continued now with g5, rook takes on c3, rook d2, rook a3, and Allie is also taking some pawns. c5, which clears now two pawns, are very fast. These two rooks though have to be repositioned to be able to support these pawns from behind and also block white's pawns. So this is what's happening now. King g4, rook a6, king takes on f4, rook c7, rook b2. And now after b6, Leela's queenside pawns will move up the board rear, because the d3 and g5 pawns are too slow compared to Leela's pawns, and also the knight takes a lot more time to get in position to support those pawns than Leela's rooks do. And now the game continued with king f5, rook g8, g6, king b7, rook takes, a5, rook d4, rook c5, and now after knight e5, Allie's knight gets into a pin, and that will be the end of that knight. Rook f8, king e4, rook e8, and now here after this check, Allie rushed back with the rook to defend the knight. But now Leela is just pushing those pawns, and she doesn't want to take any of these pawns. She's just very happy with those pieces being paralyzed. And now after rook d7, trying to get behind that pawn, Allie is just completely self-destructing, because now Leela can take this knight with check and then take this rook. And from here on is really easy. But Leela is trying to get rid of this rook because 2 rooks are too many in this position. But of course Allie refuses that. Why would I take your rook? And now Leela has 2 rooks and 1 queen, but she's not happy with the configuration of her army, and in the end she will mate with 1 rook but 2 queens. And this is now what gets executed here. She is taking those pawns and gives up one of the rooks, and now she promotes this b pawn finally to a queen, and then there's the mate on f1. Another great game by Leela, in which she proved why coming out with the queen too early can backfire really badly. Please subscribe, like and share, and check out some of the other games. Thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.